program. First, as the U.S. and Britain continue to press for a new resolution on Iraq this week, many foreign embassies have withdrawn their personnel from Iraq ahead of an anticipated U.S. attack on the country. However, some embassies have kept their offices functioning as diplomacy and international opposition to war continue. We go now to Democracy Now! Correspondent Jeremy Scahill reporting from Baghdad. He says some foreign embassies are not optimistic that war can be averted.
Some Western diplomats still in Baghdad are saying they believe that President George W. Bush will decide this weekend on an attack plan for Iraq. Some predict that heavy bombing could begin by the end of next week. If the report from Chief UN Weapons Inspector Hans Blix at the UN Security Council on Friday indicates any material breach by Iraq, then the diplomats predict that war would come swiftly, perhaps even with UN Security Council backing. Even if the report at the Security Council paints a positive picture of Iraqi cooperation, the diplomats here in Baghdad say it's unlikely to effectively stop Washington's war plans, though it could delay military action for a few weeks. Already the U.S. is escalating its attacks on Iraq in the so-called no-fly zones, particularly in the south of the country. Washington's warplanes yesterday attacked areas in the southern port city of Basra. Baghdad says the raids killed 6 civilians and wounded a further 15 people. The Pentagon has been systematically targeting Iraq's limited defensive capabilities in recent weeks. In these regular bombings, the U.S. has moved away from attacking Iraqi radar facilities and has been bombing command centers and weapons Iraq is allowed to possess under current UN Security Council resolutions. In particular, Washington has been targeting Iraq's Ababil missiles and its Astros II ground rocket launchers. These are weapons which could be used against invading forces moving in from Kuwait. These bombings continue as Iraq says it's taking an extraordinary step to prove its intent to cooperate fully with the weapons inspectors. Baghdad continues its supervised destruction of its Samud missiles, as called for by Chief Inspector Hans Blix. Iraq disputed the UN charge that the missiles exceed the 150-kilometer range permitted by the UN Security Council resolutions, and charged that the demand that they be destroyed was politically motivated and intended to degrade Iraq's defensive capability even further. Still, the missiles are being destroyed, and Iraq says this shows the lengths to which it will go to demonstrate its desire for peace. But in recent days, Iraqi General Amir Saadi, a senior advisor to Saddam Hussein, has said that if Washington continues to flout the UN and move toward a unilateral attack on the country, Iraq will end the process of destroying the missiles, which would then be used against a U.S. attack. Iraq has not allowed the destruction of the Samud missiles to be filmed, saying the images would demoralize Iraqis ahead of a possible invasion. Meanwhile, a group of African-American religious and civil rights leaders has arrived in Baghdad for a 3-day fact-finding mission. The group is led by Reverend Herbert Daughtry and Walter Fauntroy, a former congressman and advisor to Martin Luther King Jr. The group has been touring schools, hospitals, and other civilian sites in Iraq. They say they plan to take their impressions back to the U.S. and call on their congregations to take action against a war on Iraq. For Democracy Now!, this is Jeremy Scahill in Baghdad.
This is Daughtry, Reverend Daughtry here in Baghdad with the multiracial interfaith delegation of religious leaders on a mission of peace, a prayer pilgrimage for peace. We're here bearing the hopes and the fears of the peoples of the world. We have met with many of the Iraq people. We visited school, hospital, and also the bombed shelter. We hope to have a meeting with government officials sometime before we depart, which is Thursday. We heard that there was a bombing yesterday, but keep in mind that the war has never ceased. The bombing has continued. I just recently learned that from 1991 up to the present, over 100 sorties have taken place. So we have met, before we departed, we met with the ambassador of Iraq, we met with representatives of the United Nations, representatives of the State Department, carrying the message of peace. The people want peace. So we will carry the same message when we meet with governmental officials. The peoples of the world want peace, that whatever is necessary to bring about an avoidance of war and to bring about peace, this is what the peoples of the world want, and this is the message that we come to bring to Iraq as we have brought it to other places, to other officials. So hopefully we hope we can achieve our objective and save the world. We shudder to think what will happen when war starts, or should it start. We do not believe it's going to be confined to Iraq, but probably it will spread to other places. We may be on the brink of seeing the end of civilization as we know it, and therefore we make a fervent appeal to President Saddam Hussein and President George Bush that do not bring this world to war. Find the way to peace. Thank you.
And that was Reverend Dr. Herbert Daughtry of the House of the Lord Pentecostal Church in Brooklyn, New York, speaking to us from Baghdad.